What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now going to take us into Salt Lake City, Utah, where the Utah Utes, out of the Big 12 Conference, had a very disappointing season last year. However, with a lot of new pieces coming in and some increasing optimism, they could contend for a Big 12 title in 2025. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you'd like to support the channel even further, then please do what it says right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell, because turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload, especially not one for your favorite team. In fact, you don't want to miss anything during prediction season. I am a sports media professional, just started my new job in the industry, and if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date what goes on this very YouTube channel, please give us, or I should say give me, not us, give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call the platform, and Instagram. You can also even email me, TailgateNate29 at gmail.com. I want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, however you may be doing so. With all that said and done and out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Utah Utes in 2025, led by their head man in Kyle Whittingham. And there's been a lot of speculation that this could potentially be the last season in this program for Kyle Whittingham, and maybe even the last season of him coaching overall. And compared to what we've seen Whittingham Ute teams do in the past, last season was a very big disappointment, and a lot did go wrong. However, I think there are some people sleeping on this team. Not most. I think there are some people sleeping on this team. Utah could be a surprise in 2025. How do we do preview predictions on the channel this year? Well, we are first going to go through a roster preview, which the offense is going to be over here to the left, and the defense will be over here to the right. At the end of the video, we'll go through the Utah football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is just going to tell you what I think about the Utah Utes in 2025. Before we do get started, some numbers right below me that I want you all to be aware of, as returning production numbers are according to ESPN, and they do factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage. Numbers right below that, your recruiting and transfer portal ranks, they are according, of course, to 24/7 Sports for the class of 2025. Let's take it on over this side to talk about your offense first. Your offensive coordinator is Jason Beck, and let's talk about the quarterback position, because what feels like for the first time in forever, the Utah Utes are going to be getting a new starting quarterback, because Cam Rising, after applying for yet another year of eligibility, I think it would have been his 8th year, he was declined and entered Devin Dampier from New Mexico. Now, his passing stats are not necessarily going to blow you away. 390 attempts last year, 2,768 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions on around 58% completion percentage, 7.1 yards per pass attempted. That's not yards per pass completed. So if he attempted a pass and it was a 0, it goes into a 0 into the average. 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. And yeah, you could say he didn't have the talent surrounding him at New Mexico. Okay, I mean, sure, that's definitely a fairly valid point, but he still has got to find ways to improve as a passer, throw more touchdowns, and cut back on the interception numbers while increasing that completion percentage. I think if he does that, you couple that with what he brings as a runner, it's just going to be a really good fit in this Utah program, and I think he's going to explode. 1,166 yards and 19 touchdowns on the ground. I don't know many quarterbacks in the modern era that can say I've had more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns, especially as a full-time starter. Devin Dampier, and this is why the text over here says it brings a new look to the Utes offense. It is because I believe and you can even go back and look. Kyle Whittingham just hasn't had a guy that is this dynamic on the ground. And Devin Dampier, well, I don't think he's the highest passing upside quarterback to come through this program. I think he does have a pretty high upside when it comes to his passing game. And if he makes the little things and improves on the things, I'm sure Kyle Whittingham has been working with him, especially what he brings on the ground. I think Devin Dampier going to be a really good quarterback for the Utes this season. Absolutely a guy that could lead them into a Big 12 championship game. But it's not just the quarterback position, right? This entire skill position room, running backs and wide receivers. Tight end, a little bit of a different story. We'll talk about that when we get there. But running backs and wide receivers, the rooms are going to be entirely new. They are built through the transfer portal. Running back room, 1,000-yard rusher from last season in the likes of Micah Bernard. former two-way player, was running back, rushed for 1,000 yards last season. He's now in Music City with the Tennessee Titans. And then Mike Mitchell, who only had 158 yards rushing as the team's second leading rusher last season, is going to be gone and off to U of A in Tucson, transferring within the conference, and a lot of other rushers going to be gone. This is a running back room that's basically built through the transfer portal, and it starts with Sean Parker, the freshman running back at Washington State last season, now a true sophomore, should be the lead rusher for this team this upcoming season. 735 yards and 7 touchdowns as a Cougar last year. Expect him to expand on that performance as a Ute in 2025. Some other pieces behind him, Naquari Rogers is a New Mexico transfer, and then you do get Devin Green coming over as a UNLV transfer, where he did have 123 yards and right around 30 carries last season, so not too bad of an average for him. That's probably going to be your main 3 options in the running back room for the Utes this season. Wide receiver room, also built entirely through the portal. A lot of your lead guys, Dorian Singer, 702 yards last season, gone. Brant Keithy led the team in receiving touchdowns with 6. He is gone. Money Parks is gone. And then a lot of your other top options, second leading tight end Carson Ryan. Again, everybody is gone apart from one constant, and that's going to be Daedrin Zipperer. He is going to be coming back, but I think a lot of the transfers are going to get some more production than him, especially that of Ryan Davis. Also, another New Mexico transfer that had 747 yards and 3 touchdowns receiving last season. Really good player. He very well could be the lead wide receiver, and again, has that chemistry with the new quarterback in Devin Dampier. Sorry, dropped my little phone that's got, or I should say my phone that's got all my little notes on it. That's what the sound was if you heard it. Otto Tia will be transferring in. Same thing with Creed Whitmore and Justin Stevenson. So those are some guys that could see some pretty solid production here as well. I think going to be led by Ryan Davis. You're going to see a lot of transfers make some big impacts in the wide receiver room for Utah this season. Tight ends, you won't. But knowing the pedigree of Utah tight ends, especially over the past couple of seasons, and especially in the Kyle Whittingham era, you have a lot of confidence that Dallin Bentley and Landon King are both going to be some very, very good options in the tight end room this upcoming season. Right now, according to ourlads.com, it is Dallin Bentley that's supposed to get that starting role, but I think you're going to see both of those tight ends mixed in and out of the lineup pretty regularly. Now, a big reason why that returning production review said, Nate, a lot of their production is gone. Why is that returning production number offensively at 75%? It's because there is a constant on this offense, and it is the offensive line. All 5 starting offensive linemen are going to be back, led by Spencer Fano, really highly regarded, highly touted NFL draft prospect. The Utah U offensive line only allowed, I believe, around 25 sacks last season. I'll see if that number, that's exactly right. They allowed 25 sacks last year. Now, they did allow more sacks than what their defense was able to create. More on that in a moment when we talk about the defensive side. But as far as the offense goes, with an all-returning offensive front, and especially with a quarterback that's going to, be able to get outside of the pocket and get himself out of trouble if some of the better edge rushers are able to figure out this offensive line, the number is going to go down because of what Devin Dampier can do, but also going to go down just because I think the offensive line is going to get better than it was last season, on top of that being all the experience that does return to this team. You talk about Morgan Scaley's defense. As I mentioned, Jason Beck, offensive coordinator, you see his name right up there. Morgan Scaley is your defensive coordinator, and honestly, compared to, again, what we've seen out of Utah defenses, the defensive unit last year was very disappointing, but I think it's going to skyrocket in this upcoming campaign. Where it needs to skyrocket, though, as I just teased a little bit ago when talking about the offensive line, is that pass rush. Only 24 sacks last season, and you lose your sack leader, Van Fillinger, who had 6 of them off of that defensive front. And even though not a big sack guy, I think only half a sack, maybe 1.5 for Junior Tafuna last season. Yep, only half a sack for him. He was a really big part to what Utah did on the defensive interior. Another really, really talented player that I believe is off to the NFL. Yes, he is with the Houston Texans. And then the likes of Van Fillinger gone there as well, as I said earlier. However, Logan Fano is supposed to be that next guy in the pass rushing realm. Had 2.5 sacks last season with 35 tackles. if you're going to pick a name to try to lead this team in sacks this year, I think that's going to be your guy. I think he's going to develop this pass rush nicely, and he honestly has to lead this defensive front. You are going to have some other pretty talented players in here as well. Dallas Vakalahi is going to be coming in as a true, or not coming back as a true sophomore into a pretty big role on the defensive interior. Lance Holtzclaw is going to opposite Logan Fano on the left side. Lance Holtzclaw is a Washington transfer. And then you do have some solid experienced depth players as well. Good mix of experience and young, talented players on this defensive front. I think it's going to develop nicely, but there still is the question of how much that sack production does improve. However, this linebacking unit, it does lose Kareem Reed, the former Florida Gator, third leading tackler last year at 54 tackles and 3 sacks. Really big part to what this Utah team did defensively. However, guys, this is a linebacking unit that is absolutely outstanding and is going to be probably the best defensive unit on this Utah team. Your leading tackler in Lander Barton is going to be coming back. 72 tackles, 2 sacks, did have 4 passes defended along with 2 interceptions and an 87-yard pick 6 last season. That is what Lander Barton did for you last season. And he's got a ton of talent surrounding him. Lavani Damuni, he's going to be coming back. Jonathan Hall, he's coming back. And then some just really good pieces that are going to be depth roles in this linebacking unit. But led by those 3, and Hall, Damuni, and of course the name on screen, and Lander Barton, I think it's a tight end room that's going to wreak a lot of havoc again on opposing defenses. Now, when you talk about the secondary, are going to be losing a pretty substantial piece, as Alakai Gilman is a very notable defensive back loss. Alakai Gilman last season did have 1 interception and was a top 10 tackler, 41 tackles and half a sack for him last season. However, most of the main core is going to be coming back with some good transfer pieces. In fact, one especially really good transfer piece in Don Saunders. He's coming over from Texas A&M, didn't really play too much, but all the talent is there for Don Saunders. Supposed to play the cornerback position on the left side, definitely could switch over to the right side. But Tal Johnson, a really big return in the safety room. Rabbit Evans, Elijah Davis, Smith Snowden, and you even do get some other talented pieces returning and transfers to boost up the depth in this secondary. It very well could be, ladies and gentlemen, one of the conference's best units here in 2025, one of the Big 12's best secondary members, or best secondary units as a whole. And hey, kickers are people too. Let's show them some love. The kicking gets an overhaul with a transfer punter and a freshman kicker. Their names go as follows: punter Orion Phillips, kicker and Dylan Curtis. Those are supposed to be the lead guys this season. So overall, man, I think you got a lot to be excited about offensively, with a ton of new pieces coming in, some really, really talented pieces, especially that of Dampier, Wayshawn Parker, and the likes of Ryan Davis. Tight end's not too worried about. Offensive line should improve, especially from not allowing as many sacks as they did last season. And the defense, man, I just can't see them having another season like they did last year. I think there's too much talent, and I think this team overall under Kyle Whittingham just knows how to play really, really hard. But how does the Utah schedule look? Well, we go ahead and find out right now, because right over here is the Utah Utes 2025 college football schedule. But before we dive on into that, some numbers right down below me, courtesy of FanDuel. No, not me telling you to go place your money. You do what you want with your money. It just provides a nice visual aid and some context as to how good the odds makers think Utah is going to be. These numbers are current as of recording this video, and as always are subject to change. Plus 600 to win the conference. Guys, that's a pretty low number. In fact, it's so low, it's tied for the top mark in the Big 12. Now, really, really wide open conference. There are a lot of teams that have plus 600, plus 650, plus 800 around those odds. Utah is one of them. Odds makers, again, like myself, expecting a bounce back this season. And then plus 1,400 odds, or 14,000 odds even, to go win the national championship. Yeah, there are some things that have to go right, and it is a tricky schedule to try to navigate to get into the college football playoff this year, but it is very possible for Utah this season. 7.5 win total. Again, Vegas setting, I think, a pretty conservative number, as now we start to break down and preview the schedule. UCLA is the first team that is going to be up here. UCLA just missed out on a bowl game last season, and they feel like they've upgraded, right? Especially at the quarterback room with Nico Iamaleava after the whole Tennessee debacle. He's coming over to play quarterback for the UCLA Bruins. To me, though, the question is not how good Nico is going to be. I think Nico, again, pretty solid solid talent. He showed that at Tennessee, and his production can even increase here at UCLA. But the talent around him, I'm just really not too sure about. Like, yeah, you've got some solid transfer portal pieces coming in. In fact, even a former Ute who was at Cal last season in the wide receiver room in Mikey Matthews. Javion Thomas is a really solid running back coming over from Cal. But the defense I'm really concerned about. I just don't know, again, that Nico, he's not playing with as talented pieces as he did at Tennessee. While his production can increase, I think Utah is the better team here. I think Devin Dampier is very explosive. Not saying he's the better quarterback than Nico. I think Nico's definitely got the higher ceiling. But especially when you compare these two defenses, guys, in my opinion, I don't think it's that close. Utah, I think, beats UCLA on the road. They kick off their season with a win, and they should be beating Cal Poly as well. Now, Wyoming is interesting because Wyoming always is going to be a team that plays very, very hard. Now, this is usually or I should say, this is a little bit of an interesting situation. We're starting to see it a little bit more, especially this year, where some Power 4 teams are going on the road to play these group of 5 teams. Now, Wyoming hosted Texas Tech just a couple of years ago, so it's nothing really super new for them, but their offense has got to find a way to get going. They're bringing in a lot of talented defensive pieces to try to find that defensive rhythm they had when Craig Bohl was still that head coach. I think Utah's going to end up winning this game on the road. Wyoming is a team in an environment that's pretty tough to play in, could make it interesting, but I don't see Utah losing this game on the road. At home against Texas Tech, guys, the Red Raiders, going to be one of the most talented teams in the Big 12 Conference this season, and they did really, really well in the transfer portal ranks. On top of Baron Morton, that quarterback coming back, you got some really good wide receiver pieces returning, but you bulked up a ton through the portal offensively. Reggie Virgil coming in at the wide receiver room, Quentin Joyner going to be that lead running back for you this year, but where the transfer portal class really sells is the defensive side of the ball. Take a look at some of these defensive players they brought in. David Bailey, Romello Height, Lee Hunter, Skylar Gale Howard. Guys, that's just on the defensive front. You're bringing in some really talented secondary players as well. Bryce Pollock is in. And then Cole Wisniewski. He was one of the best safety players, if not the best safety in the FCS ranks in 2023 at North Dakota State. Did not play last year, but getting back to form this season, guys, could be one of the best defensive backs in the entire country. He is a really, really talented player. Could even be an All-American at the end of the season. I think Texas Tech going to be a really, really talented team this year, and Texas Tech is going to win the line of scrimmage against a lot of teams. However, I do think Utah is one of those teams that can compete with Texas Tech on the line of scrimmage, and I think there are going to be some teams this year that have a lot of trouble being able to slow down the dynamic ability of Devin Dampier. I think he's going to be able to escape from a lot of these Texas Tech guys that, look, have some really good pass rushing ability. Overall, though, I think Utah's going to be able to squeak this one out, guys. Utah, to me, especially now, you got some games to settle in. Devin Dampier finding that rhythm and consistency, and the Utah defense, I think, should be back to almost pure, really, really good and talented form. I think they beat Texas Tech. They're at home, and they should move on to beat West Virginia on the road as well. Nico Marquial, sorry, not Mark Hoyle. I switched around some letters. Marquial. Apologies for the initial mispronunciation, but he'll be taking over there at West Virginia. You know who else is taking over? He's taking over the quarterback position, but you know who else is taking over? Rich Rodriguez is back here with this Mountaineer team in Morgantown after being there in a previous stint, and I think he's going to find that level of success eventually. I don't think it is going to be quite this year. West Virginia is a team that can give Utah a really good run. They lost a couple important pieces, bringing in some good talented pieces as well. Think it'll give a little bit of time there for Rich Rod at West Virginia. Utah wins that game. Arizona State is coming up next, and guys, after the bye week here, that's a really important bye week for this Utah team. I do think they beat Arizona State at home. I really, really like what Arizona State has got this season, though. Arizona State's just going to lose some games on the road this season. And again, the reality of the Big 12 Conference is there's just going to be a tough game pretty much every single week. But Arizona State, I like a lot. Sam Levitt could be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Jordan Tyson returning, a ton of really good defensive pieces, one of the top teams in returning production. I just think Utah gets them here. I think especially the aggressiveness that Utah can possess defensively, especially if that pass rush is going to increase, can get to the Arizona State Sun Devils, and that's why I think Utah wins that game. So Utah's already gone through some really, really tough games, and again, welcome to the reality of playing in the Big 12 conference. The rivalry game is in Provo this season. Now, BYU has got the whole situation going on with Jake Retzlaff right now. And while normally you have seen collegiate athletes, well, okay, maybe not normally, but there have been instances where you've seen collegiate athletes play with the sort of accusations that Jake Retzlaff is dealing with right now. It's a little bit different at BYU, considered that they're owned by the Church of Latter-day Saints. So yeah, they have to take that accusation very, very seriously. Very, very, very seriously. This overall is a BYU team that still does have some good talent, even if Jake Retzlaff is not going to be that guy. There are other ways that BYU can beat you this year. They still got some really talented wide receiver pieces. LJ Martin coming back to play running back for you this season, and some really good experience there on the defensive side of the football. This can still be a really talented BYU team, and in the rivalry matchup, I probably wouldn't pick BYU normally, considering the circumstances they have, but as a rivalry matchup, I just see BYU winning this game. Guys, there's a lot of unknown going on in Provo right now, especially surrounding that quarterback position. There are other ways that BYU can beat you on the football field, even without Jake Retzlaff. Think this is going to be a brawl? Usually is between these two teams. I'll side with the home side here on this one in the BYU Cougars. If you notice, I had to change my weeks there. I had the wrong weeks, not updating forward. So apologies for that. But Utah, I think, should pick up some wins here in their next couple of games. Colorado is a team that probably is not going to fill the shoes of what Travis Hunter was able to do. Now, at the quarterback position, they probably won't fully fill in the production that Shadur Sanders showed for you last season, but you are getting Caden Salter, you are getting Julian Lewis, two really good options in at the quarterback position. They did well in the transfer portal, returning some really good pieces. But again, Utah a little bit too physical, a little bit too much. I do think they beat Colorado. And Cincinnati, team feels like that's poised for a jump this year. Brendan Sorsby comes back, got a lot of good pieces through the portal, but the chaos of the Big 12, someone is going to be the disappointing face. Now, maybe Cincinnati's not the truly disappointing team this season, as some people still, or I should say most people still expecting them to be a bottom team in the conference. I don't think they compete with Utah here. I think Utah wins that game. On the road against Baylor, I think Utah's losing this one. Baylor's a team that can give Utah a lot of trouble defensively. And I know Ashton Hawkins is dealing with the whole NCAA eligibility thing. Whatever. Baylor's still got a lot of really, really good wide receiver pieces that can beat the secondary on the outside. Josh Cameron, lead receiver last year, is one of them. Kobe Prentice, Alabama transfer, really good freshman, and Taz Williams. Even Cole Wilson, who's a really talented player in his own right. Really good running back duo with Washington and Pendergrass. A quarterback I like a ton in Sawyer Robertson. Defense that bulks up through the portal, returns a lot of really important pieces. I really, really like this Baylor Bear team this year. I think they beat Utah as Utah goes on the road, but Utah, I think, splits their last two games. They beat Kansas State. Look, I do really think that this is a quarterback in Avery Johnson's going to take the next step this year. Just a little too physical here for Utah with Kansas State, even though Kansas State can play physical as well. And then on the road against Kansas, again, guys, welcome to the Big 12. I think Utah loses this one on the road to the Kansas Jayhawks, especially that if Jalen Daniels can get back to playing like he did in the 2022 college football season, where he absolutely exploded onto the scene. Actually, a pretty comparable quarterback to Devin Dampier. Those two guys can duke it out, and on the road, I think Kansas bounces back this year, gets a big win. It's this one against Utah. So 9-3 for the Utes. And I'll be honest with you guys, 10-2 is a very, very easy mark to hit here for this team. They get probably their three toughest conference games. That's Texas Tech, that's Kansas State, and that's Arizona State, all at home. Obviously, I have them winning all three of them. Is that likely? And they probably lose one of them. Maybe they beat BYU, just the way that I had Utah working out. But less worry about this and more worry about the record I have down there. 9-3 for Utah. I think it's a massive bounce back season for you. Let me know what you guys think about the Utes in the comment section below. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.